p.m.
Join us for this highly informative and interactive session. Add your voice and let's encourage each other to do all we can to rid Grenada of this terrible scourge.
Everyone deserves protection from abuse, violence, and harm. Let us promote zero tolerance for these actions in our country.
This has been brought to you by the Gender-Based Violence Unit of the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
Gender-based violence remains an unfortunate reality within our society and demands our urgent attention and action to address it. As we observe 16 days of activism against GBV,
the Gender-Based Violence Unit within the Ministry of Social Development has partnered with educators, social media influencers, and other concerned persons to host a series of discussions on the issues.
These discussions will be live streamed on November 25th and 27th and December 2nd and 4th on Mikey Live and other platforms. They will be aired each day from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Join us for this highly informative and interactive session. Add your voice and let's encourage each other to do all we can to rid Grenada of this terrible scourge.
Everyone deserves protection from abuse, violence, and harm. Let us promote zero tolerance for these actions in our country.
Afternoon panelists, good afternoon viewers, our administrative and technical team. Welcome to Voices of the People, a community conversation on gender-based violence. This is a second in a 4-part series coordinated by the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Sexual harassment is often talked about in whispers, brushed off as just jokes, or dismissed as, that's how we do things here. But the truth is, harassment is not culture, it's a violation. In Grenada, many women and girls walk through daily lives navigating catcalls, unwanted comments, inappropriate touching, and disrespect disguised as compliments. From workplaces to the bus terminal, from the community to social media, sexual harassment continues to be normalized through culture, attitudes, popular music, and media that romanticize aggressive behavior and downplay consent. This conversation invites us to look honestly at how our society shapes how we tolerate, excuse, or ignore, and how those norms harm women, girls, boys, men, and members of the LGBTQ community. Today, we explore sexual harassment in Grenada, what it looks like, why it persists, and how culture, community, and media can either fuel or challenge it. Our topic today is From Workplace to the Bus Terminal, Recognizing Sexual Harassment in Everyday Lives. And I have 5 lovely panelists with me, and I'll ask them now to introduce themselves.
So my name is Akisha Felix, owner of Pineapple Marketing and Communications, and I remain committed to use my platform to speak out against gender-based violence. And we hope that our conversation would at least allow one person to speak out today.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Edward Mark. I am presently the parish priest at St. David St. Paul Anglican Church. I'm also the Health Services Administrator acting at the Richmond Hill Institutions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shelley Waldron. makeup artist.
Hi everyone, moderator, esteemed panelists, and to everyone looking on wherever you are, TV and online. I am Brenda Batiste, and I am honored to be on this panel to discuss gender-based violence and how it interfaces and interacts with the community of Grenada. And I hope the ideas that me and the fellow panelists will share, it would augur for better or more positive steps in our community to curb gender-based violence.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zalika Peters. I am a creative, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Labukan Training Center.
Thank you. And I am Colin Charles. I am your host today. Your moderator. Right, so we're going to jump straight into it. As I said, our topic for today, from the workplace to the bus terminal, recognizing sexual harassment in everyday life. And so I'm going to throw out the first question to our panel. In Grenada, catcalling is often seen as normal or just how men hail up women. So how does this belief contribute to sexual harassment being dismissed? And so I will just throw it out so anyone could start. Yeah?
Okay, so my thing is that, you'll be walking the street and, the hey, how you doing? It looks cultured, it is, but at the end of the day, it comes across disrespectful. And if we continue to tolerate the behavior, then we are actually contributing to the problem. So my suggestion is that let's speak, let's have a conversation. Even if I hear you sip, you piss, you do whatever to try to get my attention, I would say, you know what? Probably if you say good morning, Pine, how you doing? That might be a better approach rather than, throwing off the slangs and feeling uncomfortable. So that way we break barriers and we're not going to add to the continuity of the whole catcalling, basically.
In my opinion, the catcalling has come about as being normal, but it's very disrespectful. It is not something that we should engage in at no level. And at the same time, there are other means of communicating with a woman or trying to get a woman's attention, right? Away from those sort of derogatory and disrespectful songs. So in essence, it is something that is rooted, it is something that has been accepted, but I would hasten to say it is very disrespectful and wrong.
I also think that it's come to a point where a lot of the times when this happens, it's not necessarily an avenue through which people actually want to have a serious conversation or connection. But I think a lot of the times it's like a thing to show off, like, oh, I could get this girl's attention or whatever. But I mean, under no circumstances is somebody going to say, well, yes, one day and I was walking through the street and your father sipped me and that's how I met your dad. Like, it's probably not going to happen. But I think too, we have a culture of not seeing beauty or seeing something that is appealing and just appreciating it for what it is, and not and realizing that not every interaction has to be one of conquering another person or, violating somebody in that sort of way. So I think we have to shift that kind of mindset as well too.
You set it up. You said it when you set up the question.
Yes.
That we normalize it culturally as just hailing up women, and it is disrespectful, in part. And I think what it does as well, because we have embraced it as normal behavior, it impacts reporting. Because imagine if you feel a certain way based on a catcall, and let's say you walk into the police station and you say, listen, the police will look at you, but that's how they just say something, you probably like you, right? So I think that, the catcalling, it might seem trivial, but I think because it's a cultural thing, it impacts GBV in a way that we don't pay enough attention to.
Okay, what I'd like to add is that it is cultural as long as we keep it cultural.
Yeah.
Right? So it stems from
how we socialize, how we grow up our boys and our girls, right? So it's up to the people who are rearing the next generation, grooming the next generation to ensure that they, first when it comes to the girls, that they understand what is normal, what is acceptable in terms of approach from a male, and for our boys to understand this is how you approach a female, maintaining respect. And it starts from home. I'm going to be saying that the entire time I'm here. It starts from home.
Yes.
Yes. It's how we socialize and rear, our young ones.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank you.
The child has to see daddy calling mommy honey and so on.
Yes. Not in that kind of way that there are 10 men who I pass and sip me, so that means I look good and special.
Exactly.
Right, and I'm special.
Yeah.
So we have to teach them
Correct.
that also. Indeed. Yeah. Thank you for that. So I'm going to jump into the next question because it just feeds right into, many men say that it's just a compliment, right? That's what they use, it's just a compliment. So what's the difference between a compliment and harassment? And to add to that question, what type of comments or behavior do women and girls face on the street that qualifies sexual harassment? And we started the conversation around that already. So just going into deeper in terms of giving examples of those. So I'll start with you, Brenda, in terms of, what's the difference between compliment and harassment? Because we think compliment is an harassment, right? We think it's just compliments.
It's an energy. I think compliment is appropriate. It sends off the good hormones in your body, and harassment. You feel it. It's something you feel. Sometimes when you explain it, and I've seen it happen already. When you explain it, people don't understand, and the person would say, "It's how I felt. This is how I felt. It just feels wrong." About 2 years ago, I met this. And it's cultural too. About 2 years ago, I met this guy that used to go to GBS. I didn't even remember him really. And he said, "Brenda from high school?" And he squinted at me. And I'm like, "Uh-huh." He said, "You're like Sissons, man." I said, "Sissons?" He said, "Yeah, good looks that last." And I smiled. So you see the difference? Because it is, to me, it's a compliment. Right. And I said, "Thank you," and I moved on. So there's also that side of it, that it can be complimentary, and we know how we speak, but as I say, it's an energy. You just feel, your spidey senses go off when you're in fear, when you know something is about to happen, you feel it. Yeah, so, yeah.
I think from the perspective of the person who is initiating the interaction, because Auntie Brenda spoke about it from, point of receiving. I think that brings into play self-awareness and emotional intelligence, because you have to be aware of how the person is receiving what you're saying, because your intention can be good, but you have to be able to read people's body language, read their eye contact, their social cues. So okay, this person is uncomfortable, let me stop. But I think that's where the problem is, where a lot of people don't know where they should stop. So the person is not interested, or they may not be responsive, and you're still going and going and going. A lot of the times we have this aggressive nature, especially in Grenada, and it's been a complaint from visitors as well as people who live here, that a lot of times people don't know when to stop. And you I can speak from the perspective of a woman, because that's what I am. You sometimes are in an uncomfortable situation and you're being harassed. And even though you're taught how to respond, sometimes you smile or you may laugh because you feel like if I respond harshly or I match that kind of energy, it may escalate the person's aggressiveness towards me. So I think as a person giving the compliment, you need to be mindful of how the person who's receiving, if they're interactive, if they're, receiving it well, or if they're open to that. And if not, then you just stop and walk away.
Yeah. Padam Mak, I'm coming to you. Because we talk a lot about how women receive it. Yeah. So let's hear it from a male perspective.
Yeah. If someone is giving a woman a compliment, she must feel comfortable. In my opinion, she must feel comfortable. So I would say, Brenda, you look so professional in your outfit today. Keep it up. As opposed to, I say, Mary, this backside just wobbling there, looking, looking so delicious, It's offensive, Yeah. And there's a clear demarcation.
Yeah.
Yes, the compliment, there should be that comfort that, you receive it with grace, with joy, and then you feel yourself as a woman, yes, he doesn't know me, but look, I got this compliment. I feel good about myself. But when it's offensive, it leaves you, and if you do not exercise your own standards, you have your benchmark. If you don't, you can really fall apart of a woman, as a woman. And at the same time, some of our women, they have this strong self-esteem, so they're able to ride the storm. Others may just crack, So I believe a compliment must be positive. You must feel comfortable with it. Yes, and where there isn't that comfort and respect, it's tantamount to harassment.
What I'd like to add is that the self-awareness by women comes at different levels.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So whereas a woman who is more confident, self-aware, may be turned off by the comment you made, the approach of the physical features and whatever. There are some women, based on how they were raised, how they feel about themselves, and will be very flattered. Yeah. You understand? So it kind of makes the playing field uneven for the men who are inclined to approach a woman in a manner that I would consider derogative. It's like, it worked with that one for him. So he assumes it will work with others. So again, it goes back to, the values and the principles we instill in our youth.
Yeah. Penny, you have anything to add?
Well, for me, as Father Max said, compliment has to be comfort. And harassment is basically tension, you feeling closed, you feeling attacked. And I think based on the individual, as Shelley said, you could have a high self-esteem, you could have low self-esteem. Based on how you receive the so-called compliment, then some women might gravitate to it, others would stand out against it. So it's basically self-awareness, you knowing yourself, knowing your value, basically knowing your worth.
I think also for the men, knowing when to stop, right? Knowing, knowing when, not only when to stop, but seeing the discomfort in that young lady and asking yourself, would I like that to happen to my sister or to my mother or so? And stopping right there. Because I feel like if you sip somebody 1 or 2 or 3 times and they don't respond, then that's an indication that it's unwanted, right? And it's something to stop. And so we're going to go into the next question that talks about music. So I want to jump into music now. So how do our music, lyrics, dancehall, soca culture influence how we view women's bodies and reinforce the idea that men should pursue women aggressively even when she shows discomfort? And as I said, the questions are flowing into each other, and I really want to pick apart those so that our viewers get a really good appreciation of this discussion. Yeah.
Well, what I would say is I like all genres of music. I like dancehall as much as the next person. I like soca. I like all genres of music. But I think it comes to a point where you have to separate the art from reality. Somebody could ask someone to write a song about an experience that they never had, and they could write the song about it, but it doesn't mean that that's the reality. So I think it's a point of being able to separate the art from the reality and understanding that, okay, these are things that are probably sung about. I mean, I don't think that based on the genre of music, especially if we're talking about, with sexualization of women, and so it's been going on for years. But as Shelley would have said earlier, it comes back to instilling values at home. So while you may see this on TV or hear this on the radio, you know that, okay, this is just the music, is just the art, but that's not what you want to practice in your everyday life. That's not sustainable for you forming genuine and long-lasting connections with people. I also think women and men, some people say women and men can't be friends. And that in itself is a big problem, because I feel like if you have friendships, meaningful friendships with people of the opposite sex, you kind of learn that not every interaction you have with somebody needs to be explored in a sexual way. You can have platonic relationships with people, and I think it gives you a deeper appreciation of people's experiences from both the side of a woman and a man. And I think that is something that needs to be zoned in on in terms of us understanding people's different perspectives and ensuring that we are able to understand that this is just what people sing about, but you don't want that for yourself, for your life, and as that comes back to Shelley's point about instilling values from young, so when you grow, you have that self-awareness and understanding.
Yeah. But music too, music is a thing. I love music. I love all kinds of music. One of my favorite artists is Vybz Kartel. So Vybz Kartel sing Rompin' Sharp, he and Spice. And it's a purely sexual thing. He blowing out this girl back and all of that, right? And then you have another one telling you, bend right over. If your name ends with an A, my name ends with A. Bend right over, right? And girl, broke out your back. Another one of my favorites, Conscience. But it's just music, it's art. And I love that. But there's a person who would there are people who will take it on. And so a lot of it here, in media especially, we have to be very careful, the sponges, the young adults we're raising, that they may not be at the place of self-awareness or having been exposed to values and good examples in the environments where they live. So as a community, I think it's incumbent to protect that sort of individual. And so media, all these things, we need to be. In Jamaica, where Vybz Kartel come, you won't hear Rompin' Sharp playing in its raw state on any radio station, because there are media laws against that. When you go to the dance hall, the party, you're going to hear the explicit raw version, and those are the types of things I believe people are enamored with celebrities and people who sing certain songs, and they start to fantasize. It becomes part of their, They see the way, let's say, Spice is dressed, they idolize her, they start dressing like her. That is how influential it is. But music is a thing, it works with your mind as well. Early in the morning, I don't want to hear any bam, 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 anything. I just want mellow, because it kind of starts my day. And I'm thinking that because music is it's kind of like one with the spirit, the way people receive music, we have to really pay attention to where we put it, who has access to it, and how in a general sense, everybody can enjoy it at the safe spots in their lives. Yeah, so I feel about that.
Right. Yeah, one of the things I think we have to be careful about, as the years have gone by, I have observed that there are songs you would hear on the radio that you would not have heard when I was growing up, okay? And the constant, even though there may be what they call the clean version, if you bleep out one word in a song, it doesn't change what is being conveyed, because people will sing along, even if you never heard the song. Based on how sentences are structured, you will know what word comes next, because probably it rhymes with the one that ended the last line. So we have to be careful about the lyrics that are being repeated over the airways continuously, because what it does, it adds to the same vocabulary that is used in the catcalling and all of that, and it adds to it being what we call normal or cultural, so we have to be very careful about what we repeatedly play on the radios,
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Music speaks to the heart and minds of human beings, and different genres of music, of course, We appreciate that. But there are some music, for some of us as human beings, we use the lyrics and we want to instill our value upon someone, and we want to use that kind of music now to try to own somebody, you know, to own somebody. So, for example, you might have a calypso, me bag of sugar, and you refer to your female companion, you may bag of sugar, and you know, whatever. But the music itself, the lyrics, yes, it speaks volume, especially we have some of our men with low self-esteem, and of course, some of the things they value. So for example, if a young lady would say to the mother of her boyfriend or husband, you know, sometimes he behaves in a way that is very disrespectful, both privately and publicly. And instead of the mother would say, well, okay, well, you know, you live together, but you raise it, I think, as my son, I think I should speak with him. The response would be, you didn't know so he was? You know? So in other words, sometimes we as parents, we perpetuate the behavior. And so we see that, well, not a gradual now, you know, it's faster disintegration of that respect and appreciation, you know, in a more holistic and dignified way for our women, you know. But I would not run from the fact music is good, but sometimes we use it to our own advantage, especially when we believe we're in a position to manipulate that individual, you know. I own you, you know. You hear what the artist say, you know, those sort of things, right? And again, as Shirley was saying, if you're not cultured or brought up in a way that would allow you to stand tall, to say that this is beneath me, you have to elevate yourself. Well, sometimes some of our women, they crumble, you know? Yeah. Some of them.
Yeah.
Should I say my take?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So, well, I have a great appreciation for all genre of music. It's just that dancehall is my preferred choice for various reasons. But even back then, so you have this song, Kicking She Back Door, whatever, or She Front Door, whatever the case might be. They have this old version, and they kind of did something to it now. Well, probably in the last 3-4 years, thereabout. And to me, while its songs, Kicking She Back Door songs, playful, especially on radio, then music today, it seems a bit more vulgar because they're going straight to the point. They're not sugarcoating it. They're not making you use your brain cells to think about what it is the music trying to. So it has been happening back then. It still continues. It's just that because of the generation and change in time, they are more bold with the lyrics. And again, it's entirely up to you as an individual how you would listen to music and what you would allow it to do to you. Because I would be out. Music play nice, calm, cool, everything. The minute time they start this gunman tune, everybody in the party fight break out. So it's always based on the individual and how you resonate with the songs, basically. So again, I would say self-control, and the artists, you cannot blame them. They are creatives. So they have to put out their best, because at the end of the day, that is their livelihood. So they can't sing trash and expect to get a hit. So you'd realize that they gravitate into the songs like bend over, do a this, do a that, flip a so, swing a so, because that is the reaction they want from the public in terms of getting, quote unquote, bigger in the music industry. So again, it's just an individual choice on how you allow music to direct your mind, your heart, and your soul. Yeah. That's my take.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And I think also we'll sometimes listen to the music and not the lyrics. We don't interrogate what it really means, because when Pine come up with Kicking the Back Door, it's not only derogatory, but if you listen to it, it's sexual harassment.
Yeah. We marched for Kicking the Back Door.
Right.
Yes. Back in the day. We took to the streets about
we did.
Kicking the Back Door.
And that is one of the issue with it, because some people march And some people were angry about it, including women who did not understand what it really means, who did not understand that this is rape. Right? And so I think one of the things that we need to do is, and maybe when we finish this discussion, that people who are listening would have these kind of conversation within their family.
Yeah, and let's not leave out the positive side of it as well.
Yes.
Because music really, really lifts us up in many different ways. The same way they were saying that you own the girl, Bonner and Blacks come and tell us, no girl in her, no owner.
Right.
No owner, no owner. You know, Taurus Riley, tells us to be beautiful. When you look in the mirror, she wants to be like... all these things. Tell you shit, the girl in the magazine doesn't look like the girl in the magazine. You are beautiful wherever you are. So there are those messages that are still uplifting, and so it works both ways. But again, there's a dominance of the sexy, the salacious, and you may say it's demand, supply and demand, but we have a society to build. You see, we just can't say supply and demand. We have to find ways that no matter the slackness have its place and the other part have its place. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Gospel in the morning is top tier.
Yeah.
No, seriously, for the viewers listening, just try a little gospel in the morning. It's top tier.
Yeah. It really
sets your day.
It really sets your day.
It does.
And as I gladly bring up that, because one of the things that I really wanted to do as a research is, and maybe I'll still do it, is really focusing on how music influenced children on the school bus before they get to school, and how it influenced their day.
It does.
Right? So the next question is, how does sexual harassment, and I'm going into the workplace now, right? How does the sexual harassment in the workplace show up differently from those that we talk about in the public spaces? So the unwanted comments, the pressure for favors, the inappropriate jokes, how does sexual harassment in the workplace show up differently from those on the street?
I think it's a bit more nuanced than the sexual harassment on the street.
Yes.
I think it's more subtle, almost to the point where you have to think, is this harassment, or is this okay, or is it not okay? And I think when people are accustomed getting away with it, it becomes easier for them to perpetuate that in the workplace. But one thing I've found that is a good tool, whenever you feel, especially in a professional environment, when someone makes a inappropriate comment or inappropriate joke, pretend that you don't understand and ask them to explain. What did you mean? What did you mean by that? And they would never want to explain themselves because they know what they mean. If it's a person in a position of authority, that's also a more nuanced kind of sexual harassment, because a lot of the times, especially if you're just start working, your boss is pressuring you to do something, you feel like you have to do this. If you speak out, would anybody believe you? What are the HR policies that are in place within the organization you're in? All of these things affect the sexual harassment received on the workplace, and then the reporting measures as well. If people are encouraged, if there's sensitization, all those things are big factors in sexual harassment in the workplace.
Yeah, I think in the workplace, HR is a specialty of mine. So I'll speak from that point of view. There's a power dynamic in the workplace that really, really feeds the person who is doing the harassing. And it happens to men and women, young boys and, and so on. Normally it's a supervisor, a manager doing it. It's hardly ever peer-to-peer. And there's also this thing of disbelief, and in environments where there are lots of women, if one pair go to another pair and said, listen, I went to the office and this is what the boss, they say, really? So disbelief, and then they might get two others and say, why does she feel he wants her? Because, she might be, the other person saying that might be, but how come you never make a pass at me? I'm prettier, And these little things really undermine. So it is really critical to have solid policies in place. And you have to set up an environment of openness, and especially for the boss. The boss have to, like, if you're doing HR, you have to be friendly with everybody. The boss need to see you and everybody good. Because it might step back a little bit, when, because you have to be easy to talk to. But I've seen in the workplace already how people have been destroyed by it, how it has affected people mentally, and how people take it because they have to pay their bills and feed their children. And that, the power dynamic of harassment in the workplace, in no way equates to sometimes what happens in the public. Yeah.
Within the context of the workplace, it's sometimes it takes a longer time to get out. What happens in the public, persons may have an idea and would have perhaps witnessed it, but in the workplace, it's done in a subtle way. For example, someone was speaking to me about a friend, went into the workplace, and one of the supervisors on the ground, said, he was into her. So you approach her and so on. So she went to the friend and said, listen, I ain't into that, So she basically said, listen, not one of it. It came for appraisal, and he told the panel, she ain't fit for the job. You don't think she's qualified enough based on her performance. You understand? So that, but the good thing is it did not daunt her spirit. But I'm saying, it is weaponized, right? You comply, you don't complain. You understand? But thank God there are some who complain. So it is used, as a weapon against, as Brenda said, even for the men. But we're focusing on the women and girls here. So it's something that is alive. It's something that is deep-rooted in the systems here. And it's something that we have to seek to work policies, yes, and also working with our women. There are some we have to assist them in building their self-esteem, their self-worth. They must see, listen, I am an individual, I am special, I am worth it. And again, I say there's always that benchmark, and you seek to excel rather than to go below it, So in some cases, I said, the policies, yes, but we have to work with our women, our young ladies, because sometimes even if you go home and you make mention of it, the other is man, no sort of support as to, you talk to somebody in social development and say, you speak to a counselor and say, hey, so-and-so is the case, how do I deal with it? There and then, within the context of the ministry, there are various units that will be able to handle, right? But you do that, and again, I go back to Brenda's point, coupled with policies that are workable, not just on paper, right? We make these policies workable and practical, right? Effective, to bring about that change that we so desire.
Shelley, you want to say something?
Yes, what I'm, listening to this, the responses to this particular question has me thinking, it would be great if after this period of awareness, activism and awareness, that we can see, we can see that people have an avenue, women have an avenue, men have an avenue. Because you may figure, let's suppose you work in in a company that's run where the owner is chief cook and bottle washer.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of these establishments don't even have an HR person.
Yes.
The man, the manager, whatever he is, the be all and the end all. Okay, so how do you okay, you might decide, okay, the same boss is hitting on me. Who do I report to? I want my job, I'm efficient, I'm qualified for this job, Should I just walk off this job and allow this man to do it to somebody else? You understand? What can I do? You know, home again.
Yeah.
If my daughter was in that situation, she would know what to do. You understand? Because I would let her know. You mentioned, you know, wondering at what point is it really sexual harassment? It is once it makes you uncomfortable.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you for
Once
that.
you get uncomfortable, it makes you uncomfortable, it is harassment. And if you're in a situation where you cannot go to the boss because the boss is the one, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, what do you do? Because, you know, there are steps you can take, and we have to empower our females especially as to what steps to take in those scenarios. So I hope that out of this discussion, we can see some amount of awareness and something in place that young ladies know, listen, you don't have to take this. You understand? You don't have to lose your job, you know, for this reason.
Right.
Sorry.
Thank you for that. I know I am being indicated that we need to take a break, so we'll take a break for 30 seconds and then we'll come right back to you. So stay there and we will be right back.
Against our women and girls, men and boys, is totally unacceptable and inexcusable. My name is Father Edward Mark, Minister of Religion, social worker, counselor, and a strong advocate against violence. Therefore, I ask Grenada to join with me to take a firm stand against violence of any nature.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Violence undermines our sense of self-worth and self-esteem. Let us take a stand against all forms of violence. My name is Nala Sam, Little Miss Grenada, the Spice Child, and I take a firm stand against all forms of gender-based violence.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Violence.
Welcome back. And so we're going right back into the discussion. We're having a very fruitful, healthy discussion here. And so I want to continue with the question, with the discussion, because I feel like we're going to hopefully have one person, if it's just one person who reach out to get help, then we can say we make some kind of change with this conversation, all right? And so I want to talk about outside of the workplace, being silent. So why do women and girls, including boys and men, often stay silent after being harassed on the job? And we start talking about it already, right? On the job, at school, in public, at home, and especially at home. Why do they often stay silent after being harassed?
Can I start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I didn't get to contribute on the...
And you can go right ahead and do that.
Let me explain, and then probably you'll come into
Yes.
the silence part.
Yeah.
So when I started working, I don't want to say what I was the first, second, third for nobody to know exactly where. And because of my performance, then the next level would have been a promotion. So I was told if I don't know how to go on my knees and let me jaw hurt, then I would not see the position. So I was still trying to figure out what a person means, because it didn't really make any sense to me. And he actually came from a female, not a male. So when I went home, I explained to my sister that that's what was said. And she was like, but that was sounding right. She said, so you're a dog? Because dogs alone now go like close. I said, so I still don't understand. So when I went to work the following day, I explained to a coworker, and as Brenda said, the majority of sexual harassment ain't coming from your coworker, well, your peers. It's always the ones in managerial positions. So when I explained to them, they say jaw. So then I kind of put two and two together and understand, but what the hot jaw is all about. So I was like, but that don't make any sense. I said, why you come from a woman? So lunchtime, I went back to her because I was feeling real uncomfortable. And she was like, oh, when you're doing this business, you have to stoop to conquer. I was like, stoop to conquer? I said, well, you literally want me to stoop to conquer. I said, that don't make no sense. She said, well, don't worry about that. If you don't want the position, then that's that. So I remained silent. Why I remained silent is because that was my first... Anyway, that was my job. So I didn't have a choice because, you know, you want to feel independent. You want to know that you can make it on your own, you could do this, you could have this. So that is the reason I remain silent. Yeah. But now that I'm an entrepreneur, it happens here. As a female, being an entrepreneur in Grenada, trust me, ain't easy. Because especially if you have to do sponsorship, and let me say you have to go to mail to get the sponsor. All sorts of requests that's not even on the proposal. So again, I would remain silent, not because I'm afraid to tell my story. It's just because let me feel you out, let me see what's going on, and then I'm going to expose you. Because if I send it once, twice, 3 times, what is not on the proposal, you want to put on the proposal. Bend me sideways, swing left, go right, up, down. So to me, I just, you do it one time, they say, oh, never, that person would, because it's Mr. So-and-so in society, they're going to brush it off. And you do it once, twice, and that is it. It becomes a habit. So then okay, fine. I'm going to speak to somebody about this. And me being silent doesn't mean that I won't tell immediate family or I won't tell a close friend. It's just that I won't go to social media and make a public post. But it's happening to a lot of young entrepreneurs, especially females in Grenada. And we still remain silent. Well, I don't know if me telling a friend or telling a relative, if it's me speaking out, but I mean, to do something bigger, then yeah. So I am, let's say probably, maybe in the process of, but can't go on full head on. So I am still working on it. So I'm still speaking to people, letting them know who the individuals are. And I would be walking the street normal. And the amount of sexual harassment, 99 men probably try to rape me 99 times. I mean, not physically, but you would actually hear them saying, this is what they want to do. Right. It started with text. Then he actually came like, okay, I'm seeing the person saying this. Several reports were made to the police station. A lot. So I am, as much as I'm in a public space, people would be like, oh, well, you put yourself in that position. No. You're not calling people to violate you or... So it happens, yes, in the workplace. It happens even in your small business. It happens as well. So I don't want to say I'm saying silent, because I'm not. It's just that because it's a process and it takes me to an emotional place, and maybe I'm dealing with it in my pace. So yeah, but it happens, and there's a lot of people that would reach out to me with similar experience. So then I feel comfortable now to actually share mine, to let them know that, okay, well, yeah. So that individual is actually, so that's just something they are accustomed doing. It's normal. So we walk in to pull them down. So yeah, so that's all.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Thank you for that, because this is one of the reasons why we're here, is to let women know that you have a voice and you can use your voice. Telling one person, but also maybe reaching out to your counselor, reaching out to social development, and trusting one person with your story, because I think Brenda said it earlier on that if you leave it undone, then some other person will, and that person may not have the level of self-esteem that you have, the level of self-awareness that you have. So whoever you can tell, wherever you can make that report, because we really want to get rid of gender-based violence in our society. So I'm going to go back to my question. Why do women and girls, boys and men, often stay silent after being harassed on a job, at school, in public, or at home?
Well, I believe the silence, has many different contributors. One could be fear, right? As Ms. Felix would have alluded to, the fear of perhaps someone losing their job, yes? The fear for their life, because it depends on how it is articulated, yes? A request is made coupled with a threat. Yeah. You tell your mother, I'm going to deal with you. And that is why, I don't want to gravitate too much, but that is why I believe that the Status of the Child Act, a bill, that would have brought up so much argument. And I heard a particular politician saying that whoever supports it doesn't have a conscience. But I'm saying to the world, I support it, but it has to be tweaked in some ways. And I have a conscience. I'm saying that to the world. I have a conscience. Yes? So that fear that is instilled in our women and girls, I will do this to you. Right? So, and also, sometimes they may whisper it to one person and they shut you down. You ain't making sense. What you lying for? What you lying on the individual for? All right? And perhaps it came close to home that, okay, what do you think the Wi-Fi paying for? And you use these sorts of reasons to just stifle an individual whose private space was, is being violated. And then one thing lead to another. We see people, our women and girls, they pine away. And the first thing they say, oh, the parents ain't trainer and this and that. It had nothing to do with upbringing. It's how we stifle them, how we treat them, the value. We place a level of nothingness on some of them. And this is totally unacceptable. So I think the silence, yes, it can, the genesis of it can come from fright, fear, losing the job. I mean, there are many other contributors to that, but I'll stop here.
There's fear of retaliation, losing your job, disbelief, all of that. But there's an overarching thing here, and we have to be honest about it, and we have to put it on the table. Adequate support structures, government agencies, HR and so on, in companies. People have to feel that if I make the report, something will happen. Right? Today I saw a post on social media from someone who was actually, explaining what happened at the court and, that sort of thing. We just don't seem to be at the point where we feel a person who's violated figure, if they speak up, that something will happen. Their situation will be remedied. They won't be stigmatized. They won't lose their job. Their mother won't tell them, girl, who paying the rent here? Hush your mouth. These sorts of things. We have to start, making actionable progress to a place where it is our lived experience. Just like in the US, everybody in the US know, even in Barbados, that once you do XYZ, you go there, you go here, you go, And so we really need to boost our supporting structures, the police, the court, at the gender-based unit. You do a lot on your plate and all of that. But we have to get to that point where because it is prevalent. It is prevalent. And a lot of people are silent. I mean, Akisha, I think you're being very brave. Thank you for doing that. Because these are the things people would relate to and latch on to. And somebody looking at them and say, hey, that happened to Pineapple? Well, yeah, look, that happening to me. And that's what you want, for somebody to feel, I probably can do something about it. But I am normally, and when I was in the media, I saw it a lot. Yep. I saw it a lot. I really I saw the full circle of this thing. And adequate reporting and support structures, we need to get really serious about those.
Jonna, chime in?
Well, I agree with Brenda.
Yeah.
The supporting structures are key, right? However, without our women being empowered, not stifled from youth, not feeling like they have a voice or what they say matter, those agencies will be there and they probably would not be, they would not be utilized as they should. But it's important to ensure that people or young people realize that they have a voice and they can make a difference. There are different ways of communicating. You mentioned, about, not being able to come out and say, like, expose somebody. Everything doesn't have to be a big expose. Yeah. It doesn't have to be. There are ways to hold people accountable for their actions without it being, on a social media post.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the times people like to say Grenada is a very safe place. And we are when we speak about violent crimes and homicides, etc. But the majority of the assizes in the court are for rape, incest, and crimes of sexual violence. Exactly. And we spoke about the workplace and the question, but also about being silent at home. I remember growing up and knowing girls my age and younger who had to deal with that sexual harassment in the home. And it was to a point where I would make sure, like, okay, when school's on break, you come by me, because at least you don't have to be home during the day when that's going on. And in one person's situation, it was a case where the mother was also abused by the father. So she went to tell her mom, but then what does the mom do? You know? And I think, too, the onus is on us, as well as the supportive structures, but it also needs to be in schools as well, where we encourage children to talk about their experiences and create safe environments where there are counselors or other social workers available to deal with these kind of crises. Because as everyone has said on the panel, it is prevalent. It happens in the workplace, at home, and if it is perpetuated where your father did this to who and it's generational at that point. So we have to find a way in which we can break that cycle of being silent, and also, as my esteemed panelists also said, making sure that people are actually held accountable in a way that it seems like there's justice that is served for people who go through these kind of things.
Thank you for that. And I want to say, Akisha, thank you for sharing with us, for being vulnerable to share that story with us. And moving on to something that I feel very passionate about, this question. Are we going into finding solutions now? What role do bystanders, friends, co-workers, supervisors, community members play in either enabling or stopping harassment?
It's a silence. One of the ways they contribute, whether it is to provide a space for somebody to share, or you give them advice. You understand? Somebody comes to you with a story, just like you said. They say, "Oh, that can't be that person." You understand? Your silence, you can either contribute to even more silence on the part of the victim. You understand? So one of the things we have to be aware of, whenever a person comes to you with something from the heart, there are two things. That person obviously saw you as someone who they could trust.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to value that. And then you have to decide, like Brenda, I have a background in HR. When you come to me with a story, what it is you would like? Is it that you just want to offload? Would you like me to do something about it? You understand? That is the approach I believe that we should be taking when somebody comes to us with a scenario. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't just be about you just offloading. You will offload because you want something to be done. And then, provide what should I say? Energy for the person to go further with whatever their complaint is. You understand? So as a bystander, as bystanders, people come to us about stuff. You understand? So we can enable by shutting down the person who comes to us, or we can see some kind of solution to that person's issue by giving them suggestions, pointing them in the right direction for how they can make their complaints and so on. Yeah.
Father Mark? And you can choose any one of them, or two of them, or all of them.
The silence, the bystanders continue to, in some cases, see and know, silent. Years ago, I could recall whenever there's this sort of relationship issues, you see the man hitting the woman, harassing the woman. In some cases, you see some men get some good cocktail too, The table is, you have some women could hold their own. But the fact is, you used to see it, right? But, like how you dare not intervene and say, oh, Mr. behave yourself, ma'am, behave yourself. You stand up there and you look at it. You go to school, you write a composition, right? Today, we would have evolved. A lot of things that, we used to be doing, it appears to be right, but it is totally wrong. So, but yet, we see it. Me, I ain't putting my mouth in, me, that is a business, that sort of thing. The only time perhaps we try to react and really become an advocate when it hits us home.
Yeah.
When it hits us home, say, boy, this thing had to stop and so on. But for decades, we see it and we cast a blind eye. It may not be our business. There is big people, let them handle their thing. But what we have to understand as a people, as a community, as a nation, yes, we have to work in collaboration with each other. Just as how when we have bereavement and the community come together, you know, sometimes we may not know the individual, the deceased, but offsprings of the deceased we know. So we go, we give that support, you know. And sometimes, you know, it could be our co-workers. You say, well, you know, we spoke to the boss and, you know, the boss is saying you could take the next 48 hours at home. The boss comes, sit down, you know, you reach out, you support. But when it comes to sexual violence, yes, there is that, you know, the brakes on the vehicle is brand new. It's brand new.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're not applying it at all. So what we need to do is simply this. Again, the modus operandi of our people must be one of order, must be one of dignity, one of respect. And therefore, again, structures, again, the community outcry, yes, it is loud. But there is this deafening silence because I don't want to get involved until it hits at home. So unfortunate and sad.
There are two things I want to say about this. The 16, I don't want. There are men who they laugh. They laugh, they support that. I remember I was talking to a friend early this year and I said, I don't see a XYZ place anymore. And he said to me, I can't go back there. So I was there Friday night and somebody, you know, a pedophile if you wish, come up and say, you know me, I don't want nothing under 15. And everybody laughed. So he said he walked away because he didn't feel comfortable. Everybody laughing and breaking bread with this person. So, you know, he can't do it anymore. And whenever they're there, they're talking about their wives, how much wrongs are sex, I beat her up, I do the, you know, and we were just enabling the foolishness, yeah? So I think men need to, I know you have to have, for interventions, for me, they have to be safe. You just don't intervene to intervene. It has to be safe. As Shirley mentioned, if a person come to you, you know, what support can you give? As Shirley mentioned, if a person come to you, you know, what support can you give? And again, you ask the questions, what would you like me to do? You want me to just hold space for you? Or would you like me to support you in an effort to report this? Or how can we, you know? And then you hold the person's hand. But I think men need to stand up to their partners, their friends who are beating their wives, beating their girlfriends, going with girls who are underage and saying, nah, none of that, yeah? And that's the way you could, because that's a lot of enabling comes from silence or just laughing, you know, or just, you know, normalizing it. And then for people in LGBTQ, when they go to report things that are done to them, you know, who's laughing, hey, you know, so and so the Bulla man just come and say blah, 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 you know, that sort of thing. So it's a gamut of things, and we really need change in mindset, actionable changes in our cultural forms where we relate to each other, you know, and what can happen to one can happen to all. It's just ain't get by your door yet. Father Mark is so right. People only care really, you know, in that deep way when it touches them, yeah. You know? So we have to do better with that.
On the converse too, with men who are also being abused. You know, it's not something that they feel comfortable talking about because a lot of the times they get laughed at. But there are some women who really put their hands on some men and they don't feel that they have any, the same thing that you said, you know, if you report it in the police station, they laugh. Yeah. And nothing is seriously done about it. And then another thing too, I feel like we've become so desensitized as a society that when we see things happening, instead of, the outrage or you being appalled, people take out their phone.
Yes.
I remember being in Bathway when Easter time, so up there's full of people. It was a lot of years ago. And this woman and this man were arguing, and eventually he started to beat her up. And I am screaming because I'm like, what's going on? And everybody else is just like, oh, well, yeah, that normal thing. But I went to get the police because I'm thinking, this is because he dragged her off into the bush. And nobody lifted a finger, nobody batted an eye except me and the person I was there with. And we went to get the police, and the police was like, well, yeah, they're always fighting, that's a normal thing. So as Father Mark said, sometimes it's not until it hits home or until it's an extreme situation where the person unfortunately loses their life that we want to have this public uproar and upcry. But we really need to make some changes to ensure that people are comfortable in speaking out, and when they do speak out, that there's actionable change that actually happens.
Thank you. And how you want to say something?
Yeah, but what that also says is, for a woman who allows herself to remain in a scenario where, people no longer feel like they want to intervene because it's a habit of her being abused, a woman has to take stock of that, you understand? We don't want, as bystanders, we don't want to get to the point where we are turning a blind eye, because I'll tell you, if I observe a woman being abused, I don't care how many times it happened. Yeah? I will call the police, and I've done it already. And the next day, you want a man holding hand going on the beach, and the next night he beating you again, I'm calling the police again.
Exactly. Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
Because, we're only going to make a lot of noise, as we say, when somebody loses their life. You understand? So I do not want to be a bystander who gets, kind of immune to watching repeated abuse in a particular scenario. I'm not going to be one of those persons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Because sometimes we have to give them grace, if you will. Like, because sometimes it's so hard to leave. I know the easiest thing for us to say is, why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't he leave? But it's hard. When I worked in the media, I basically helped somebody escape the country. Police don't come for me. But a policeman was involved too. Because I used to have these topics in the morning, and that morning we were discussing that something had happened. You know how we are when things happen, and we were discussing, violence and so on. And after the program, there was this lady waiting outside for me. And then she says, what happens to her? Raping, beating, husband, raping, beating, church community saying is your husband, friends gossiping. And she started to have suicide ideation and able to save at least one life, because so she's happy in Canada now, remarried. The only thing though, she's still not ready to return to Grenada. Yeah, she's not ready to come back to Grenada. Yeah.
For sharing that with us. I want to touch on something that I did not have here, but it keeps coming up, and something that I feel it comes up in all social issues: confidentiality. Because I hear we talk a lot about having these safe spaces and so on, not only physically, but you as a person holding space for people. And a lot of people would say, but I don't know who to confide in, because when I confide in X, Y, and Z, it went so. When I confide in the counselor, now the principal no, and my parents no, and that no. So how do we ensure confidentiality for people who need a space to talk about what's going on with them?
Well, I think we have to be very careful about confidentiality in a scenario where you need assistance, right? So the first step that a victim makes, they have to understand confidentiality has its its limits. You understand?
And that needs to be explained
and
to them.
And it needs to be explained to the person that, listen, this part of it, the details, these specific details, we can keep confidential. But if you actually want this matter to be addressed, dealt with, there is some amount of sharing that has to take place and where it's going to be shared. Yeah. So if you hear that, okay, the principal knows, it's because you are already aware that this is one of the steps that would be taken. You understand? So confidentiality has its limits in this scenario. You understand? But as well, when a person comes to you, as I said, you have to value the fact that this person chose you out of everybody else to share this with, and you have to respect it and value it and ensure that the person's interests are protected in whatever means you try to go, to have the resolution. Yeah.
It's sad, when you listen to those jingles and so on as it relates to gender-based violence, even the Special Victims Unit, GBV, etc. And then when an individual decides to step into the water, boom, all right? And as counselors, we must be held accountable to maintain the ethical standards that is required, because I cannot see you speaking to a counselor and the principal, no. I have experiences speaking to children, their parents don't know, but the issue is that serious, and we use different conduits to deal with the situation. I'll give you a brief scenario. There was a situation with a student, and he came to me. He said, "Sir, mommy and daddy fighting, man, cussing. They're telling both of them about their mother. Daddy beating up mommy." So the first step, I said, "I'll speak to them." So I don't tell them it's me. I said, "No, I wouldn't." So I called them to the school. I said, "What on the ground?" I said, "I'm passing my ram, Nani, and I hear some people talking, all you cussing and all you fighting, and those children there, they look at one another." I say, "Well, Father Mark, that is the truth." So we had a conversation, and I encouraged them, to sit on cheese, rice and. I said, "Well, okay, that's very good, I said, "Well, thanks for sharing, and I was happy to assist you." He said, "Okay," and he ran out of my office, but he came back in about 30 seconds. He said, "But Mr. Mark, you didn't tell them it was me." I said, "No." "Okay," and he dashed out again, right? So, because, you have to use different mediums, but at the same time, it is urgent enough.
Yes.
If it warrants calling my supervisor and the matter goes to the police, But the fact is that we forfeit that opportunity to really help somebody get out of the gutter. So instead we go and tell everybody. And I want to make this point. As a religious leader, the church is also culpable, because there are some of us as ministers of religion, when the saints of God come to us with an issue, we pacify it. "Oh, you're married." And you say, for better or for worse, for better or for worse, the vows didn't say to abuse. You understand? So, as a minister of religion, you have to get the persons involved and minister to them. It says, "Oh, he's your husband, and you can't say that, and you can't say that." There's an individual on the point of death, and then the management of that particular religious organization, they open their eyes. You understand? So sometimes we as ministers of religion, we're there, "Oh, praise the Lord, Jesus Christ," and whatever. But the people that we are called to serve and to minister to, sometimes we let them down. Right? So that's why confidentiality. Me, I ain't trust no principal, I ain't trust no priest, I ain't trust no counselor. Because either they had that experience or someone shared it with them. And to me, when we do that, we put them into deeper mortal danger.
Thank you for sharing that.
There's this saying that shame dies in safe spaces.
Yes.
And a lot of people having those situations they're normally ashamed, embarrassed. You normally have to tell them, it's not your fault, it's nothing you did. But that's a hard thing, at times. And so I think when we, just run our mouths instead of doing it the positive way that Shelley and Father Mark explained, what we're doing is re-victimizing, and you never know what can happen next. The person needs to feel safe, the shame dies there, and then action is taken. Yeah.
Okay, we're counting down the time. And I have 2 more questions. What changes must happen in families, schools, workplaces, and the wider culture to reduce sexual harassment and make Grenada safer for everyone? So you could put 1 or 2 of the places to speak on. And I will start with Brenda because she just stopped talking, so go right into it.
You don't think I need some water?
Yes. yes.
Oh gosh, in Grenada. So I go back to supporting structures. I really go back to that. I must applaud the laws in Grenada for sexual harassment, child protection. They are very progressive. Very progressive. I don't even think people pay attention to how many times we amend and we kind of first world where it is. But our behavior is not first world. So our behavior and culture does not match, right? And we're still in a lot of the punitive stage, less rehabilitative, And that's why what you're doing here as the social development and gender-based violence unit is so critical, because we need to have these national conversations. Even if one family is touched by this afternoon, what they've heard here, we would have done a great thing. And it needs to continue, be part of the infrastructure of the society. So I go back to that. And of course, the home. We know a lot of homes, single mothers, and it really, it's cliche, but it takes the village. But these days, the village behind their gate, they're on their phone, and we're not villaging like we used to village before. So I think those are the ways that I see we could probably enhance Grenada in that sense. And yes, we need a family court, quick and fast.
Yes.
Fine.
All right. So at the beginning of the conversation, Shelley said something that stood out to me in terms of the structure of the family and, the awareness you put into the kids in terms of growing and, knowing your value, knowing your self-worth. So again, I would say, if you go across Grenada, you'd realize that the majority of household is single parent, and single parent being female. So it's single mothers raising. So it's just that women need to be more mindful what they're putting out there for the children to kind of adapt, so to speak. So once that is grounded, then there's no way you'll have a young girl going out there accepting, little or nothing, because she knows her standard, she knows her value. So again, it's really the structure of the household. And a lot of times we home and we feel as though we're the perfect family. And when we really sit and we think about it, you look at somebody else and then you realize, well, no, I think I'm doing right, but I'm not doing right. Or you look at somebody else and you say, well, I thought I wasn't doing good enough, but I am doing good enough. So as parents, guardians, I think the responsibility really lies with them. So create that kind of environment for the children so that they know what to accept, what not to accept. And not just the girls, the boys as well. So my thing is just parents kind of know all you're doing. Focus on the thing. Don't tie it up. Yeah.
Yes. As it relates to the family and its involvement in alleviating such grave cancers, such as, sexual violence and so. First, I want to appeal to all of us as parents to pray for our children, first of all. Because sometimes when our children make mistakes, we see them as Satan. I never do that in my days and you come and do that. Curse going to take you. That is how we react as parents. So we have to understand, and in nurturing our children, we must nurture our children to know failure is not the end of the rope. Failure is a motivator for you to excel. So, and not also praying for your children, pray with your children.
That is important, yes? But we also, in our Grenadian society, we have to be real, because you see, some of the things we sugarcoating, and like we're living in a fairy tale world. This can't happen. I only read that in books. I only see that in movies. No, we have to come down to the ground. You understand? So the standards within the household, within the family structure, must be one that gives guidance to our children, first and foremost, and we live by example. St. Paul alluded to the fact that in everything we do, we must have order. Yes? So in looking forward as a family, I also want to appeal to us as men, that we have a men's desk in the Ministry of Social Development, and I know there are programs and activities geared for us men. So let's seem to embrace it. And of course, there is a small team there. So our men, we can reach out to the men's desk and to simply, if we need help, we come and we seek that help and get that guidance. Because you see, society also look at us men as financiers, some kind of culture. If you can't give your maintenance, you can't see the child. He bad, he wicked. And that is something we have to bulldoze out of our psyche and our community, right? Men are human beings that can give and share love. They can discipline. They can assist. They could be co-workers. So we have to also, yes, the men we are beat up on because there are certain behavioral patterns and certain actions, want to slap on somebody, a woman in public and so on. No, these are things, of course, is a no-no. There's no compromise there. But at the other side of the coin, there are some of us men who make a difference, who strive to make a difference. And there are some men, again, who are out there in the wilderness seeking help. But again, the stigma, right? This man, look at his size, look at his walk, he come in and ask for help. What's wrong with him? You see them kind of thing? Again, confidentiality, And again, of course, our mothers and fathers must also teach our boys self-esteem, the do's and don'ts. Good morning, miss. As opposed you go to a dance. One of our class teachers said, we were doing, I think, the word love in Spanish, te amo. And he's Mr. Lloyd Robert, may his soul rest in peace. He said, when he was growing up, he go to a dance. He said, miss, may I have this dance with you? Or madam, may I have that dance with you? But in Grenada, come let me jam, girl. And that stuck in my head from secondary school. Because, simply this, on one side, you show some respect and decency, and on the other side, you basically show disrespect and just take things into your hands. So I believe the family is important. So I want to commend the work of the Ministry of Social Development, its various units, and of course, the supporting partners, Corporate Grenada, the media and so on. And I believe that we can bring that change, but it takes all of us, not some of us. It takes all of us to do it.
Well, I'm glad you end on this, because we're few minutes away from ending, and I really would like each of you to tell me, what will you do to help curb or eliminate sexual harassment in our society from where you sit in your profession?
Okay, I could start with that. In my profession, I come across young ladies, grown, mature, different ages. And one of the things I try to do in my space is to share, right? Share my experiences, right? Sometimes I have people that open up to me, you understand, and share their own. And I believe when persons like myself, in my profession where we have this close contact with clients, we have to be sure that we create spaces where women come in and they feel if they have a burden, that they could lay it down in your space, that you would respect what they laid down, you understand? And I believe in sharing, you can save someone.
Yes.
You understand? If I share my experience with you, you might not even have thought Shelley went through that. You understand? Right away, you may be able to open up to me, and then you might figure, you know what? I might say to you, no, this is what I did, or, you know, so this is my thing, is to maintain a space in my professional environment where a woman comes in, and if she has a burden, that she feels comfortable to share with me, and then I will be given the advice that she needs. That's the way I feel. I feel strongly that us women, we need to be each other's keeper, you understand, and to advocate for betterment in each other's life. Okay. That's how I feel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, so at the beginning, we did the introduction, and I said that I remain committed to, you know, help speak out against gender-based violence on my platform. And I know I shared a story here, and probably few people on the live could probably resonate to it. So if you do, the WhatsApp link is on the page, so you could, if you want to have a conversation, we could go ahead and do that. I am not a professional in that field, but I can guide you to, you know, the relevant authorities. So Pineapple Marketing and Communication, we open, we safe. So yeah.
Thank you. Father Mark?
Going forward, I wish to continue to work with all stakeholders, and I believe the genesis of me coming in to assist and to be part of the Ministry of Social Development activities and so on would have opened my eyes to a lot of things. It shows that if we continue these forms of engagement, we can touch the lives of people. But advocacy, yes, maintaining a standard, a trajectory that we say no to such behavior, right? If we compromise, it means that we're going to fall apart.
Yes.
So we have to set that standard, maintain it, and at the same time, work with all stakeholders, because I believe we would be able to reach out to our communities in a deeper way, right? So rather than, you know, it's just one set of individuals or one set of organizations, but collectively, and of course, we will reach the layman. So one of advocacy, maintaining the standard, and outright no to sexual violence against our women and girls.
Thank you. Brenda and Nancy?
Well, I mean, I love Grenada. I'm a patriot. And so I consider myself a community advocate. And this is one of the things that I'm really passionate about because of, you know, certain things that have come into my space. Strangely, a lot of people I don't even know sometimes come to my inbox with things, and I, you know, always hold space for people and try to assist wherever I can. But I'm going to continue to lend my voice, my resources when I can, because whether we upscale the agencies, whether we get all the laws right, I believe we need to have behavioral change. And so I would always commit to activities like this, like we're having now, and others that can really, really, really change the behaviors and actions so we get to a place where it's better. So, you know, to reducing catcalling, to reduce all those things. Once we start with all these things, once they start shifting, obviously behavior would shift as well. So that is my commitment to the new Grenada.
Yes, well, I work in a creative space, and I think it's very important when people can see situations in a way that's mirrored back to them without you lecturing them. So, and that comes in the form of the art. So I know we have partnered with the ministry before. We put on a production called What's Your Verdict, where it was a courtroom drama where a young man was accused of killing his father because he caught his father sexually abusing his sister. And we did that production throughout various communities throughout the island. We even went to Carriacou as well. And we had that support from the ministry where there were counselors on board and able to give people who would need that sort of counseling after the production was over, a space for them to report and to also ensure that these matters are discussed and addressed and then action is taken. So I think my commitment as a person in the creative space is to ensure that we do more of that kind of thing. and to, hopefully go to schools with other productions, even that same production as well, or others as well, to ensure that we create a safe space and hold space for people to realize this is actually what's happening. And if this has happened to me, then I have resources, I have measures in place where I can go and report. So that's my commitment.
Okay, thank you very much. So to the viewers, sexual harassment, we're wrapping up. Sexual harassment is not harmless. We heard that here. It is not culture. It is not compliment. It is a barrier to safety, dignity, and equality. We all have a role to play. So men, hold each other accountable. And I think we heard that on Tuesday over and over again. We heard that here today. Hold each other accountable. Women, your discomfort is valid. Your voice matters. Bystanders, silent is consent for harassment to continue. And I'll say that again. Bystanders, silent is consent for harassment to continue. Workplaces, set clear policies. And as we say here, not just setting them, not just building them, but implement those policies to protect your staff. And parents, teach your children early about boundaries, consent, and respect. And if you don't have the language for it, reach out to one of the agencies, and I will list them in a minute to help you with those languages. So let us commit to building a Grenada where consent is respected, where women and girls feel safe, and where our culture uplifts rather than harm. So we start the conversation here, and change is starting the conversation, but also it must also end with action. And so we have some actionable from our panelists here, so I will follow up with them. And I want to say thank you to you, the viewers, for spending the time with us, the panelists for volunteering your time and insight, George F. Huggins for your donation, Mikey Live for your technical expertise and bringing this important topic to the people, Grenchap, Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic for volunteering time, service, and expertise to this conversation, and the Ministry of Social Development, the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs for coordinating such a needed conversation. And the GBV unit especially, because this came directly from the GBV unit. And I know there is a group of young ladies at the GBV unit who does their work with passion. So I want to say thank you to them. And I will call out the numbers for the agencies. The Gender-Based Violence Unit, 417-6167. 417-6167. Special Victim Unit, 400. Child Protection Authority, 435-0293. Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, 440-3788. Grenchap, 435-0585. So tune in to our next discussion on Tuesday, the 2nd December at 5 p.m. And I want to say thank you also to Jomel at Fanchipani for my face. Thank you very much for beating my face. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Violence destroys lives. Let's end violence now. I am Anya Chowchong, Chief Executive Officer of George F. Huggins and Company, Grenada Limited, and I am taking a firm stand against gender-based violence.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Shatters lives. Let's break the cycle. My name is Zalika Peters, and I take a firm stand against all forms of gender-based violence.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Feels it are the ones who truly knows it. But we can show empathy. Think what it feels like to be a victim of violence. If you don't like it yourself, don't do it to others. I'm Samuel St. Bernard, Planning Officer in the Ministry of Social Development. I take a firm stand.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its social partners.
Gender-based violence remains an unfortunate reality with tension and action. 16 days of activism against GBV.
The Gender-Based Violence Unit within the Ministry of Social Development has partnered with educators, social media influencers, and other concerned persons to host a series of discussions on the issues.
These discussions will be live streamed on November 25th and 27th and December 2nd and 4th on Mikey Live and other platforms. They will be aired each day from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Join us for this highly informative and interactive session. Add your voice and let's encourage each other to do all we can to rid Grenada of this terrible scourge.
Everyone deserves protection from abuse, violence, and harm. Let us promote zero tolerance for these actions in our country.
This has been brought to you by the Gender-Based Violence Unit of the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
Against our women and girls, men and boys, is totally unacceptable and inexcusable. My name is Father Edward Mark, Minister of Religion, social worker, counselor, and a strong advocate against violence. Therefore, I ask Grenada to join with me to take a firm stand against violence of any nature.
This is a message from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, together with its